these Epstein files, which, it's blowing up so much so that people are highlighting this guy, Tim Dillon, that for some reason people highlighted before is now finally figured something else out.
Let's look at Trump here. And I do think, unfortunately, this kind of is the end of, and I say unfortunately, not because I care, truly, but I say unfortunately because it seems to not be doing anything good for anyone. This is the end of the Trump administration. This is the beginning of the lame duck presidency. It's obvious to everyone, even his most ardent supporters show up to the White House, like Laura Ingraham, and she's kind of shocked, going, what the hell's going on? Now we'll start, 3 years of talking about the ballroom. He will trail off. He will get older. He's adorned the White House in gold. Epstein's going to suck the oxygen out of a lot of this. We're going to talk about that a little later on. Apparently AI, by the way, the only thing I'm sure of about AI, I'm not an expert, is that AI, as soon as we have robots running around this country, they'll all be pedophiles too. There's no one in power that will apparently just not be a pedophile. All these robots will be pedophiles. 100% will deal with pedophile robots. Our first robot president will be a pedophile. I know that. It's the only thing I know. Our first AI robot president will absolutely be a pedophile.
I guess it's over. Tim Dillon says that it's over. The Trump presidency is the beginning of the end. You love to see it and hear it. Maybe it took this much. It took such a blatant cover-up of child sex trafficking rings and his name listed all over the place for enough of these folks to finally go, wait a second. You mean Donald Trump is a liar? It's got this guy shaken up, and every time someone asks him anything about it, he gets a little bit snippy.
The president of Harvard, who that is Summers, Larry Summers, whatever his name is, and all of the other people that he spent time with. Jeffrey Epstein and I had a very bad relationship for many years. But he also saw strength because I was president. So he dictated a couple of memos to himself. Give me a break. You're going to find out what did he know with respect to Bill Clinton, with respect to the head of Harvard, with respect to all of those people that he knew, including J.P. Morgan Chase.
Sir,
yeah, Jennifer, go ahead. Go ahead.
In the file, Venezuela, sir.
Quiet, McGee.
Quiet, McGee. Isn't it McGee? Quiet. Shut up. Shush. No follow-up questions, because you might actually ask me another question, make me look even worse than I looked just now. He didn't answer the question the first time, of course. All he wanted to talk about was how he has to go after Democratic folks that are potentially all mixed up in those files. Hey, bro, go after all of them. The problem with that is that people would have to ask him next, aren't you going to go after everybody? So that's the snippiness towards reporters asking normal questions. This is him coming up with new theories to distance himself from this further, and it only makes him look worse.
Timeline for when you might release more of those files?
Which ones?
Democrats to Epstein.
Well, I don't know about those ones. I know nothing about it, but I understand they released like 40 or 50,000 pages already.
Okay.
And nobody. I will say this. If they had anything, they would have used it before the election. Okay? I can't tell you what they put in since the election. But if they had anything, you don't think they would have used it before the election? They would have gladly used it before the election.
Sir, speaking of the election,
Jennifer,
why was your team encouraging Congressman Goldberg and Congresswoman Mace to not pursue?
Because we think it's bad to talk about it, because it gets away from the subject of how well the Republicans are doing.
None of it makes sense. And people are finally listening to what he's saying. I think that's always been the problem. People have just heard about what he's said and don't actually listen to it. More people are listening to what he's saying, and it doesn't make any sense. Do you hear that theory? Biden and them. This is also what Stephen A. Smith's dumbass said. Also, a couple other Republican politicians said, because they were carrying that same water, that if this was a real thing, Joe Biden would have released all this stuff and had all the damning evidence on me before the election. And since then, Donald Trump said, since then, I'm not sure what they could have added since. So let's listen, think about that statement. Donald Trump thinks there was nothing in those files, or else Joe Biden would have released it before. But on top of that, maybe since you may see some damning things coming out, Joe Biden must have added it afterwards. Joe Biden and his Department of Justice added information or some kind of damning information into the Epstein files since Donald Trump took over in 2020 25, the beginning of this year. How is it possible that Joe Biden and his geriatric ass could be at home in his rocking chair, somehow influencing how we're going to put more things in the Epstein files that he has no control over, that your Cash Patel and your Pam Bondis are in complete and utter control over? An investigation that they've shut down, an investigation that said there's nothing in there that they've already looked into and investigated. How is it possible that Democrats can add something to the Epstein files? It's impossible, and it doesn't make any sense. And the only reason he said it is because he's flailing. And the reason that you'll say things like that when you're flailing is because the heat is so close to your ass that, it's starting to burn. Chris Murphy says it, a lot more eloquently than I do.
On Epstein, the president is now demanding, or has demanded, that the Attorney General, the Justice Department investigate his political opponents. And Pam Bondi responded by basically saying, yes, sir, and moving in that direction. What do you make of that?
Well, it's both heartbreaking and totally unsurprising. The Department of Justice has just become a protection racket for Donald Trump and a witch hunt operation against his political opponents. This is why our democracy is in such peril right now, is that for the first time in our history, the Department of Justice operates in order to try to punish and lock up anybody that criticizes Donald Trump. I'm really proud of the work that Representative Massey has done in the House of Representatives, along with Ro Khanna. And yes, John Thune should bring that vote to the Senate floor as soon as it passes the House of Representatives. It's true that Donald Trump is trying to cover up for, I think, a host of really powerful and rich people, but he's frankly not that selfless. He wouldn't be going through all of this effort to try to stop the release of these files if he wasn't seriously implicated in those files. This is most likely the biggest corruption scandal in the history of the country. We know that because Donald Trump is going to these extraordinary lengths to stop these files from coming out.
Yeah, Chris Murphy said it well, too. He's going through some extraordinary lengths to make sure that this doesn't see the light of day. He's not selfless enough to actually try and do this to cover for all these other rich and powerful and influential people who are all part of this child sex trafficking ring as well. He'll throw them under the bus if it comes to him saving his own ass. So the heat is on, like I mentioned. Multiple Republicans are talking about if this comes to the floor, they're actually going to vote for it. Instead, the courage is building. So, of course, this is Donald Trump's response. He said, as I said on Friday night aboard Air Force One to the fake news media, House Republicans, I'm going to repeat that, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide, and it's time to move on from this Democrat hoax perpetuated by radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party, including our very, very recent victory on the Democrat shutdown. The Department of Justice has already turned over tens of thousands of pages to the public on Epstein, are looking at various Democrat operatives, Bill Clinton, Reid Hoffman, Larry Summers, etc., and their relationship to Epstein. And the House Oversight Committee can have whatever they are legally entitled to. I don't care. He says a lot more other stuff, but it doesn't matter. The main crux of that is that he thinks it's a good move now, and it's going to save his ass to say, I'm going to direct my Republican colleagues in the House to vote to release those files. Bro, they were already going to do that. You just don't want to look too bad when they finally do. I directed them to do that. And on top of that, you know what else he said? Let's go and have them investigate certain folks that I don't like so that maybe this can wash my hands of this whole situation. Please, bro, please. And actually, there's another reason why he thinks he's so smart and no one thinks beyond this second grade level. Thomas Massey blew up the lid on this tactic.
You know, the president's been saying this is a hoax. He's been saying that for months. Well, he's just now decided to investigate a hoax, if it's a hoax. And I have another concern about these investigations that he's announced. If they have ongoing investigations in certain areas, those documents can't be released. So this might be a big smokescreen, these investigations, to open a bunch of them as a last-ditch effort to prevent the release of the Epstein files.
Did you hear that part? It's actually part of the answer to the reason why people like Stephen A. Smith and other folks said, hey, during Biden's term, why didn't they release all the information? It's because investigations were continuing. So since Donald Trump wants to launch more investigations into people that he hates, and also at the same time, hopefully convincing people who are keying in on him to think that it's just all those dirty Dems, what he could also have this be is an ongoing investigation that he re-triggered from the Department of Justice to look into certain people with Epstein. And then therefore he can't release all those files because it's an ongoing investigation. John Carl also pointed it out too. Maybe he said it a little bit better.
George, politically, Donald Trump did everything in his power to prevent this vote from happening, and now suddenly he is calling on Republicans to vote in favor of releasing the Epstein files. Now, keep in mind, this is a reversal that comes as Donald Trump was on the verge of his biggest political defeat of his second term. He is essentially calling on Republicans to vote for something that many of them were already planning to vote for. None of this, although, means that these files will be released. If Trump wanted to release the Epstein files, he could do it right now. He could do it this morning. He could have done it last month. In his statement overnight, he said that Congress can have whatever they are, quote, legally entitled to have, which means, George, now he could use the excuse of an ongoing investigation, which he has also just called for, into Democrats, to block the release of the files.
Does he really think that's going to work? Does he think he's like that? He's a smart guy? Who told him that? Like, this is what you do, President Pito. This is what you do. You launch an investigation and say you can't release the files because you've launched this investigation because you care so much about it. Marjorie Taylor Greene will probably go for it and be like, that's right, going after them. I'm back on Team MAGA.